Hey guys, in today's video, I bring you a fascinating testimony full of mysteries. Let's meet Selene Everhart, an art teacher who literally died after being struck by lightning and returned to bring us shocking revelations. She saw the future of humanity, encountered Jesus, and witnessed secret meetings involving Vladimir Putin. What she discovered will leave you speechless. Before we start, leave your like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content like this, and activate the bell to receive all notifications. Get ready for a spiritual journey that will change your outlook on life and the destiny of humanity. My name is Selene Everhart, and until the summer of 2005, I led a quiet life. She was an art teacher in Thunder Bay, Minnesota, a small town surrounded by nature. I loved my routine. My mornings were filled with classes for community children, and the afternoons were filled with long walks along forest trails. The storm that changed my life began like any other, a shift in the wind, the distant sound of thunder, and a heavy feeling in the air. That day I was distracted, talking on the phone on the porch at home, not realizing the danger that was approaching. Yes, I know. I promise I'll be at the wedding, I told my friend as I watched the dark clouds gather on the horizon. The smell of rain filled the air, and small drops began to fall, splattering on the wooden steps. The weather changed quickly, as it often does in Thunder Bay, but I didn't worry. The storm looked like one that would pass quickly. It was then that I felt it. A tingling shot up my legs, followed by intense heat. I dropped the phone, but it was too late. A blinding flash filled my vision, and the sound of thunder seemed to explode inside my chest. My entire body was shaken by an indescribable force, as if the entire sky had collapsed on me. The pain was unimaginable, as if every cell in my body was being burned and torn apart at the same time. The impact of the lightning was so strong that it knocked down the transformer in front of my house, plunging the neighborhood into darkness. I was conscious but unable to move. Everything around me seemed to spin, as if I were in some kind of whirlpool. I don't know how long I stayed like that, but suddenly the pain disappeared, and I felt a lightness I had never experienced before. When I opened my eyes again, I noticed something was different. I was standing, but I could see my own body lying on the porch, motionless. What's going on? I thought, my mind confused and scared. I tried to get closer, but something stopped me. It was as if an invisible force was pulling me back, away from that body that seemed so familiar and, at the same time, so distant. It was the beginning of something I could never imagine. The feeling of being out of body was surreal. Initially, I thought I was in a nightmare or perhaps in shock. I saw my body motionless on the balcony, with the rain falling on it. My skin had scorch marks. The phone was a few feet away, and the wood around it looked burned. But what disturbed me most was the fact that I didn't feel pain, cold, or fear. Instead, there was a strange serenity, mixed with confusion. I decided to go into the house, trying to understand what was happening. As I walked through the door, something peculiar caught my eye. The furniture was different. My favorite armchair was missing from the corner of the room, and in its place was a floral sofa that I didn't recognize. There was a clock on the wall that I had never seen before. It was like I was in a slightly altered version of home. Is this a dream? I asked myself, my voice echoing as if I were in a large, empty hall. I walked around the kitchen, touched the table, but I couldn't feel the texture of the wood. My hand passed through the surface as if it were made of mist. Every movement felt slowed, as if I were submerged in warm water. A disturbing thought began to arise. Did I die? As the idea took shape, I heard a sound in the distance, something like a low hum that gradually got louder. I was drawn to the window, where I saw the neighborhood completely dark except for a golden light on the horizon. It was a light that seemed to pulse, alive, almost inviting. Against all logic, I felt an irresistible need to follow her. The light seemed to call me. When I returned to the living room, the front door was open, although I didn't remember leaving it that way. Outside, there was a road that shouldn't be there. It was made of shining stones, and its outline pulsed with the same golden light that I had seen through the window. The buzzing became a whisper, indistinct words that seemed to come from everywhere. I took a tentative step toward the road, and the moment I did, I felt as if an invisible veil had been lifted. The air around me felt thicker, charged with an energy that was both strange and comforting. Something was waiting for me at the end of that road, something I didn't know if I was ready to face, Manu, but I knew I needed to follow. As I took the second step on that road of luminous stones, an overwhelming feeling took over me. It was as if a gentle electric current coursed through my being, but instead of pain, what I felt was warmth, love, and comfort. The buzzing around me was now clearly a voice, or perhaps several voices, murmuring words I couldn't understand, but which seemed to communicate something essential. It was at that moment that I realized I was not alone. An immense presence, greater than anything I could imagine, appeared beside me. It had no defined form, but it was tangible in a way that transcends words. It was a vibrant, enveloping, golden light that seemed to radiate directly into me. Somehow, I knew that light wasn't just something I saw. It was something I felt with every fiber of who I was at that moment. "You're safe," a soft voice said, but not in words as we know them. The message was transmitted directly to my consciousness, filling me with a peace that was almost unbearable. It was so beautiful. It was as if every fear, every doubt, every suffering I had ever experienced had been ripped away from me in an instant. For the first time in my life, I felt what it was like to be fully loved. "Who are you?" I tried to ask, but realized I didn't have a mouth to speak, nor a physical body to articulate the words. Still, the question was heard. "I am love," replied the presence. These words, so simple, echoed within me with a meaning that surpassed any earthly definition. It was as if I was standing before the essence of everything that is good, pure, and eternal. The light began to envelop me even more, and suddenly I found myself floating beside it. Together, we walked through what seemed like a curtain of golden and pink clouds. They seemed alive, moving in harmonious patterns, as if they were dancing to music I couldn't hear but could feel. With each movement, a new wave of peace and love passed through me. "Why am I here?" I asked, and the presence responded, "You came to remember, to learn, to know what has always been yours." The veil of clouds began to part, and before me appeared a landscape that I could never adequately describe. It was a garden, but not like any garden I had ever seen. He was alive in a way that transcends human understanding, and he knew instinctively that this was a sacred place. When the clouds dissipated, I stood in front of the most extraordinary garden I could imagine. It was as if each leaf, each petal, was alive with its own light. The colors were so vibrant that they seemed to go beyond the spectrum we know. Greens, blues, pinks, and golds that glowed as if they were made of pure energy. The scent that filled the air was sweet and calming, mixing notes of flowers and something I couldn't identify, but that seemed to heal my soul with each breath. I could hear the sound of running water in the distance, and somehow, I knew that everything was in perfect harmony there. It wasn't just a pretty place. The garden pulsed with life, with love. It was as if he recognized me, welcomed me. Every step I took was accompanied by a feeling of lightness, as if the floor itself was made of love. It was then that I saw two figures walking towards me. Initially, they appeared blurry, but as they got closer, their faces became clear. My eyes filled with tears when I recognized them. They were my brothers. I never met them in life. Cora had died before I was born, and Michael passed away when I was just 2 years old. Even so, the connection was instantaneous, as if we had never been apart. "Celine," Cora exclaimed, her radiant smile lighting up the space around us. She looked to be around 25 years old, with bright eyes and golden hair that reflected the light from the garden. Michael was younger, maybe 20, with a mischievous air and a hearty laugh. "Finally, we're together," he said, reaching out his hand to me. "How can that be? I've never met them." My voice was shaking, but my words were interrupted by their embrace. It was a hug that transcended any feeling I had ever had. It was as if all the hurt, all the longing were erased in that instant. "You've always known us," Cora said, with a softness that seemed to echo through the space. "We were never far away, just waiting for you here." They led me along a path that wound through the garden. Along the way, I saw people from different eras and cultures, all glowing, healthy and young. Some wore clothes that looked medieval, others clothes that I didn't recognize. Everyone was smiling, and the peace on their faces was unmistakable. We arrived at a crystal-clear lake, where the water reflected the sky like a perfect mirror. Cora and Michael stopped and turned to me. "There is more for you to see, Celine," Michael said, his voice full of enthusiasm. "But remember, this is the place where love never ends." The feeling of wholeness was overwhelming, as if my soul had finally found the home it had always been looking for. After walking through the heavenly garden with Cora and Michael, the environment around us began to change. The golden sky above us seemed to open up, and an invisible screen formed in the air, as if space itself had transformed into a stage. A sense of anticipation filled the air, but not fear. It was something close to curiosity mixed with awe. "Now you will see what you have brought here," said Cora, holding my hand. Her expression was serene, but there was something in her eyes that conveyed a deep knowledge, as if she knew what was coming next. "But remember, Celine, there is no judgment here, only learning." Suddenly, scenes from my life began to emerge. It all started with my birth, a moment I never imagined it would be possible to witness. There was my mother, holding me with tears in her eyes, while my father smiled nervously beside her. The love I felt in that room was overwhelming, like I was experiencing not only what I saw, but also what everyone around me felt. It was like reliving the emotions of those who had been by my side throughout my existence. The vision advanced quickly, going through moments of my childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. I saw my small achievements, the paintings I made at school, the friends I helped, the advice I gave my students. Each of these moments seemed to glow, as if recorded somewhere in the universe. But then, more difficult times came. There I was arguing with my mother, saying cruel things that I later regretted. I saw my face harden as I ignored a colleague who needed help because I was too busy. I realized how small actions, or lack thereof, had created ripples of impact in other people's lives. And the most surprising thing, I could feel the effects of these choices, as if I were in the shoes of the people affected. "Every action is like a stone thrown into a lake," said Michael, his voice echoing in my mind. "Waves spread, even if you don't see it." But what struck me was the total lack of judgment. There was no condemnation, only love. With each mistake I saw, I was enveloped by a sense of understanding, as if the loving presence itself was telling me, "You were learning. This is part of who you are." Cora pointed to a scene where I was comforting a student who had lost her parents. "See this, Celine," she said. "The kindness you gave her that day reverberated throughout her life. She took it forward. The lessons became clear. All of our actions, words, and even thoughts have a much greater impact than we realize. It's like a boomerang effect. What we emit returns, multiplied." With each scene, I understood that life is not just about existing, but about the energy we choose to share with the world. When the review ended, I felt empty and full at the same time, as if something in me had been purified. Michael and Cora smiled. "You understand, don't you?" he asked, placing his hand on my shoulder. "Yes," I replied, my voice breaking. "Everything matters. Absolutely everything." As soon as my life review ended, I felt something profound was changing around me. The sky over the garden seemed to expand, revealing an infinite horizon. The loving presence that accompanied me became even stronger, as if preparing me for something greater. Cora and Michael remained by my side, but now there was a different energy. It was as if I was about to step through an invisible portal of understanding. "Now you will see what has always been connected to you," said the loving voice that had guided me from the beginning. His words were not heard in the traditional sense, but felt as if they echoed directly into the essence of my soul. I was taken to a space that seemed to transcend time and space. It was no longer the garden, but something vaster, like the core of all existence. There were no physical forms, just pulsating lights, each emitting its own melody, creating a cosmic symphony. Each light seemed alive, conscious, and I knew instantly that those lights represented all forms of life: humans, animals, plants, and even the stars and planets. The voice explained, "Everything is interconnected. Every thought, every action, every emotion you project reverberates through all things. The universe is a single being, and you are an essential part of it." As I absorbed this revelation, I began to notice the connections between the lights. Each sent and received energy from all the others, creating a harmonious pattern that extended as far as my perception could reach. It was like an infinite web of love and energy. A wave of realization hit me. All the divisions we create between races, religions, countries are illusory. We are all one. But if everything is connected, why is there so much suffering? I asked, my mind struggling to reconcile what I saw with the reality I knew. Because humans complicate what is simple, replied the voice. You forget who you really are. Suffering comes from separation, from the belief that you are alone. But that was never the truth. Another vision appeared before me. I saw my own image, surrounded by negative words that I had accumulated throughout my life. Inadequate, incapable, guilty. These words began to dissolve, replaced by others: beloved, valuable, eternal. I understood that these truths were valid for everyone, not just me. Every human being carries a divine spark within them, even when they forget it. When the vision ended, I felt a profound internal shift. It was like a weight I didn't even know I was carrying had been lifted. The voice, which now seemed to come from within me, said, "Recognize the divinity in all things, including yourself. This is the key to transforming the world." As these words sank into my consciousness, I was taken back to the garden, where Cora and Michael were waiting with expressions of approval. "You saw what you needed to see," Cora said. "Now there is more to learn." I still didn't know what would come next, but I knew that my soul would never be the same. After returning to the heavenly garden, still immersed in the revelations of the interconnectedness of everything, I felt a change in the air. It was as if the absolute peace of the place had been slightly disturbed by a vibration I couldn't identify. The loving presence was with me, but its energy felt more serious, as if something of great importance was about to be revealed. "Now you will see what is coming," said the voice. The words resonated within me with a weight that seemed to pierce my soul. Cora and Michael held my hands, offering support as the scenery around me changed again. I was transported to what appeared to be a large, crystal-clear lake. The water was so calm that it reflected the sky like a perfect mirror. However, as I got closer, something changed. The lake began to transform, its waters reflecting images, as if they were projection screens. The first sight was terrifying. I saw violent storms sweeping away entire cities, earthquakes devastating land and seas, invading coastal communities. It felt like the earth itself was screaming in pain. I saw dry fields where there used to be rivers, and desperate people, fighting for basic resources like water and food. The loving presence explained, "The earth reflects human choices. She suffers, as you do, when the balance is broken." My vision was pulled to another scene. This time, I was inside a luxurious room, with walls decorated in gold and marble. Around a long table sat world leaders, faces I recognized from news reports and newspapers. Among them, Vladimir Putin was prominent. His face was serious, and his words echoed in space but I couldn't hear them clearly. It was as if something was deliberately blocking my full understanding. However, the images made the intentions clear. I saw decisions being made that would impact millions of lives. Decisions that could lead to irreversible destruction or profound transformation. I saw weapons being positioned, strategic maps being drawn, and agreements being made in secret. "These meetings happen while the world looks the other way," said the voice. "Humanity's future is being shaped here, but there is still hope." Another scene emerged. I saw people from all over the world coming together, helping each other in the midst of crises. I saw communities rebuilding what was destroyed, with kindness and collaboration. It was as if, even in the midst of chaos, there was a force of light fighting to prevail. "Free will is powerful," the voice continued. "The future is not yet written, but it depends on the choices you make now." Finally, I saw something that left me speechless. A vision of ruined cities with dark skies and desolate silence. But at the same time, on the horizon, there was a growing light, like a distant dawn. I understood that, even in the face of destruction, there was the possibility of rebirth, as long as humanity chose love and compassion. When the visions stopped, I felt exhausted, as if I had come a long way. "Why did they show me this?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. "So that you understand the urgency of the moment," replied the voice. "You carry part of the light needed to illuminate the path. Everyone does." Cora and Michael hugged me as I took in the weight of what I had seen. I knew that these visions would stay with me forever, but I also felt that they were just the beginning of something much bigger. After the prophetic visions, the heavenly garden began to change again. The vibrant colors dissolved, and I found myself in a new environment. It was a city, but not like any city I had ever seen on Earth. The buildings were made of a translucent material that seemed to emit its own light, like living crystal. Tall towers reflected every color in the spectrum, and every street seemed to pulse with harmonious energy. It was a place of order and serenity, where every detail seemed designed to inspire and heal. As I walked, I noticed that the people around me were different. Some appeared to be at perfect peace, moving with purpose, while others had expressions of contemplation and introspection. Cora, who stood by my side, explained, "This is a place where souls heal. Here, they learn, heal, and prepare to continue their journeys." We passed a structure that looked like a large temple or library, with imposing columns and an almost tangible energy of knowledge. "What is this place?" I asked, struck by the magnitude of his presence. "This is the Spirit's library," replied Michael, appearing on my other side with a smile. "Here is all the knowledge accumulated by creation. Every thought, every action, every discovery made by any being is recorded here." My curiosity led me to enter. The interior was even grander, with shelves that stretched infinitely upward, containing not books, but what looked like orbs of light. Each orb pulsed gently, as if it were alive. "These are the memories of the universe," Cora explained. "Everything that ever was and everything that will be is here, waiting to be accessed." As I looked around, I was drawn into a smaller room, where I saw what appeared to be three-dimensional representations of planets and stars. It was as if I could see the entire universe in miniature. I felt an indescribable connection to it all, as if the vastness of the cosmos was somehow linked to what was inside me. Leaving the library, we were taken to another area of the city. It was a place that looked like a hospital, but instead of beds and equipment, there were golden lights floating over specific areas. "Here, souls who have experienced deep trauma receive healing," said the loving voice. "This is a place of spiritual rebirth." I stopped in front of one of the lights, where I saw a soul wrapped in a kind of cocoon of golden energy. It was as if it was being restored, its radiance gradually increasing. I understood that spiritual life was as full of challenges and journeys as earthly life. In the center of the city, a large open square brought together souls in celebration. They laughed, danced, and sang, radiating a joy that seemed out of this world. Michael touched my shoulder and smiled. "This is what awaits everyone at the end of the journey. The unity, joy, and love that transcends everything we know." For a brief moment, I felt like I could stay there forever, but I knew my journey wasn't over yet. After leaving the spiritual city, I felt a profound change in the environment. Everything around me became ethereal, as if space itself was made of liquid light. There were no more structures, just a radiant, golden expanse that seemed to pulse with an energy that I could only describe as absolute love. Cora and Michael stopped following me at this point. They smiled, as if they knew the moment was sacred. "You're ready?" they said in unison, their voices soft but loaded with meaning. With a final wave, they disappeared into the light, leaving me alone, or so I thought. Suddenly, I felt a presence so powerful that my very essence seemed to vibrate in unison with it. The light in front of me began to take shape, until a figure appeared. It was Jesus. He wasn't dressed as I expected, nor was he surrounded by the religious symbols I was familiar with. He was simple, stripped of ornaments, but his presence was overwhelming. His gaze met mine, and in that instant, I felt like every moment in my life when I felt lost, broken, or alone, he was there. "Celine," he said, his tone calm but full of authority. "You've never been alone." His words hit me hard. I didn't need to ask who he was. His identity was as evident as the light emanating from him. I just knew. "Why are you here? Why am I here?" I asked, my voice cracking with emotion. "You were called to remember," he replied, approaching me. "The life you lived was only part of the truth. You needed to feel, learn, and grow. Now, you are here to understand." He reached out his hand, and as he touched it, a new wave of light enveloped me. In that moment, I saw flashes of my life again, but this time through the eyes of Jesus. I saw every mistake, every failure, and yet, the only thing I felt was love. A love that transcended all the shame, all the guilt I had carried. "There is no condemnation in true love," he said. "There is only learning." Before I could speak, an even greater presence appeared around us. It was impossible to describe what I saw. God did not have a defined form, but his presence filled everything. It was as if I was looking at the essence of the universe, at the source of all creation. He didn't speak in words, but he enveloped me in a wave of knowledge. It was as if, For a brief moment, I had access to the divine mind. You are unique, was the message that resonated in my heart, and at the same time, you're part of everything. Tears were streaming down my face, but they weren't tears of sadness. It was as if all the pain and doubts in my life had been erased in a single instant. I knew, with absolute certainty, that I was loved, as we all are, not because of our achievements or perfection, but simply because we exist. Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder. You'll see more, but now it's time to prepare to return. Remember, you carry this light within you, and the world needs it. I was enveloped by the light again, and the next instant brought a sudden transition that I wasn't ready to face. The transition back into my body was brutal. Where before there was an indescribable lightness and absolute peace, I now felt a crushing weight. The pain returned with an intensity that made me want to scream, but no sound came out. My body felt like a battlefield. Every muscle, every fiber, was in agony, as if I had been carved by fire. I opened my eyes and was greeted by artificial lights and the high-pitched sound of machines. I was lying in a hospital bed, surrounded by machines that monitored my vital signs. Everything seemed surreal, as if the place wasn't quite real after the magnificence I had experienced. For a moment, I thought maybe I was in another kind of dimension, but when I heard the worried voice of a nurse, I knew I was back in the physical world. She's waking up. Call the doctor. The woman next to me looked relieved and anxious at the same time. My throat was dry, and my words came out as a whisper. Where am I? You suffered a severe electric shock, the nurse replied. She was unconscious for almost 24 hours. It's a miracle she's alive. I knew she was right. The lightning that hit me should have been fatal. He had survived, but in a way he could never fully explain. Still, I felt like a part of me was left behind in that heavenly garden, like I could never be fully whole again, in the same sense as before. Over the next few days, I underwent a series of tests. Doctors were perplexed by the state of my body. He had superficial burns, but the damage appeared deeper. My heart had a persistent arrhythmia, something that had never happened before. Additionally, I began having sporadic seizures that doctors linked to the lightning trauma. Despite the physical difficulties, my mind and soul were completely transformed. At every moment of pain, an inner voice reminded me, you are here for a reason. Don't waste the time you have been given. My friends and family visited me, relieved that I was alive, but unable to comprehend what I had experienced. When I tried to describe the heavenly garden, my deceased brothers, and the presence of Jesus and God, their expressions ranged from fascination to disbelief. Some thought I was delusional because of the trauma, but I knew the truth. Nothing could erase what I experienced. When I was finally released from the hospital, I began to face the most difficult part of my new life: how to live with the immensity of what I had learned. How can I carry the weight of the prophetic visions and unconditional love I felt? The answer always seemed to come back to the same message that Jesus and God gave me: be the light the world needs. I returned to my home in Thunder Bay with a more fragile heart but a stronger soul than ever. I started to see everything around me differently. The sky, the trees, the people. It was all connected in a way that I could never fully explain, but that I knew was real. The physical pain still accompanied me, but it didn't define me. Instead, it became a constant reminder of what I had survived and the purpose I carried. My mission was clear: to share the truth that was revealed to me, even if the world wasn't always ready to listen. If you liked this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.